when the former head of the Israeli military, the former Israeli defense minister, not some lefty, not some anti-Semite, Moshe Yaalon says last week, we're doing ethnic cleansing, we're sending our soldiers to commit war crimes, we're losing...
What's going on, you guys? So today we got Mehdi Hasan on Piers Morgan, and he is not playing around. I mean, he opens up by quoting the former head of the Israeli military, not some random guy, not some activist, the former Israeli defense minister saying, yeah, we're doing ethnic cleansing, we're committing war crimes. Like, what do you even say to that? Mehdi is speaking facts, and it only gets crazier from here.
Let's get into it.
Because it's not going to lead to the removal of Hamas as an entity, and it looks like support for Hamas has grown, not deteriorated. So I don't understand what victory looks like, other than what Smotrich has been saying, which is actually what it looks like is all the Palestinians gone. That Israel go in, clear them out, and they take over the land. Well, that, I'm afraid, whether you like it or not, John, is actually one of the definitions of a genocide, the expulsion of a people based on its ethnicity. Mehdi, your response?
So, yeah, a lot's been said there. Thank you for coming back to me. First of all, let me just deal with this credentials game that I know John and his friend Douglas Murray love to play these days about military, who knows more about this or that. John runs his mouth on a variety of topics. I've seen him talk about, in fact, just today he's talked about war crimes, international law, who's breaking international law. Last time I checked, John is not a lawyer. The International Criminal Court has indicted Netanyahu and Gallant for war crimes and crimes against humanity. The former Jewish president of the tribunals for Yugoslavia and Rwanda says Netanyahu should be indicted for war crimes and crimes against humanity. So let's just, we're going to play the expert game. John's not an expert on genocide. The actual genocide experts, the president of the International Association of Genocide Scholars says Gaza is a genocide. The leading Israeli scholars of the Holocaust, Omer Bartov at Brown, Amos Goldberg at Hebrew University, say Gaza is a genocide. John's not an expert on targeting terrorists. The guy who led the attack on ISIS, the American Master Sergeant Wes Bryant, has said John doesn't know what he's talking about. So let's not play this credentials game, because John will lose, just like Douglas did on the Rogan show. Let's talk about substance. John said a year ago, we're close to winning. He talked about not being allowed into Rafah. Rafah has been destroyed. Have you looked at any pictures recently? It's flattened. You don't need to go there with the IDF to see that they flattened Rafah. They flattened most of Gaza, and they still have not won, quote unquote. It's absurd to say that Israel was held back. Is this the new stab in the back? This is the new bullshit defense. The former Israeli ambassador to the United States said recently, thank God Joe Biden was president while this was going on. He gave us everything we wanted. He never asked us to stop. He never asked for a ceasefire. America gave Israel everything it wanted, and they went ahead and decided to, you talk about killing Hamas commanders. They dropped two 2,000-pound bombs on October the 31st, 2023, on the Jabalia refugee camp, killing over 100 people, to kill one guy, Ibrahim Biari, who wasn't even there, a Hamas commander. They killed...
Mehdi honestly just dismantled this guy. I love how he shuts down that whole I'm the expert game John Spencer keeps trying to play.
Over 100 people with two 2,000-pound bombs, which incinerate everyone within 100 square feet and damage everyone within 1,000 square feet. That is not targeted warfare. That is not proportionate. That is not legal. And we've seen that play out now over 20 months. And as you said at the start of the show, as I said, the dam is breaking. The Spanish Prime Minister has said Israel is a genocidal state. The Brits, the French, the Canadians that have backed everything Israel done, Britain continues to arm Israel, are saying this is intolerable. Donald Trump, as you've said, Piers, wants this done, wants this over, isn't a fan of Netanyahu. Not that I have any trust in Trump to do any of the right thing. And I think the reality is, look, everyone can see with their own eyes, there's no justification ever for starving people. Since March the 2nd, to not allow baby formula and diapers in, only a sociopath would support that. And John's very smart, he's very eloquent, he comes on here, talks with stats, cites law. Back in Israel, the Israeli politicians and the Israeli journalists are saying openly genocidal things. They are saying everyone in Gaza is our enemy. They are saying we're to get rid of everyone from Gaza. They are saying Gazan babies are not innocent. That's what they say on Israeli television, if anyone bothers to watch.
Yeah, and actually, John, there was a piece in the Jewish News in the UK published yesterday, which was without a doubt the most critical piece I have read by a mainstream Jewish newspaper in this country ever. And it was very critical of the Israeli government and its strategy. So I think this idea that what they're doing, the government, has widespread support now from Israelis or Jewish people globally, I think is actually beginning to be proven wrong. I think there's a lot of uprisings now of people saying enough, because they can see there's no end game. No one really on the Israeli government side has explained what is going to happen when this war ends, or indeed what victory looks like. And I just don't understand. I mean, look, you're a war expert. If you don't have a victory, what happens?
So you have continued war. So this is, I mean, there was a lot there that Mehdi talked about. And if you have to quote a master sergeant as your expert, as you're trying to...
Like, oh, you know urban warfare? Cool. Are you a lawyer? No. Are you a genocide scholar? Definitely not. But the people who actually study this stuff for a living, even the Israeli Holocaust scholars, they're all saying the same thing. They're saying it's a genocide. So who am I supposed to believe? The guy who gets paid to talk about tanks or the actual experts? And the most pathetic part is this: we were held.
Say that I'm not an expert, or the other people that you list, while you're saying I'm not an expert.
He's the guy who literally, led the effort to kill ISIS.
Yeah.
But okay.
Don't interrupt me. I didn't interrupt you. But you're not an expert. Fine. I'm not an expert. Fine. But history, the military tactics. You say, Piers, what does victory look like?
Yeah.
Exactly the standards. Every hostage brought home. Hamas not in power, both military or political power in Gaza. And there's something else. Now you have actual, great, quote, Israeli press. That's the beauty of a free press. People can say what they want and get it published. You have people voting with their feet in Gaza right now saying, Hamas, we don't want Hamas. What you have, what victory looks like. Now, I can tell you historically what it has ever looked like and what did it take to defeat another military. Take the Korean War. 2 million civilians died in the Korean War. 54,000 civilians a month for every month of that war. Do we call that a genocide? Do we call it illegal? No. Israel does follow the law of war and goes way beyond the legal obligations, like feeding the enemy's population, because as of right now, trucks are rolling in, even though they've tried to figure out a plan to get the food away from Hamas. And again, point the finger at Hamas, point the Mehdi, control yourself. Open the gate to Egypt, create the biggest displaced person camp just on the other side of the gate, and get the women, the children, and the elderly out of harm's way, and then destroy Hamas. That's victory, so that it never threatens Israel again. Go to Sir Andrew Roberts on the history of when you start a war, when you lose a war, you actually do lose the right to govern your population. You do lose the right to subjugate your population, because the billionaires in Qatar don't care how many people in Gaza are dying.
Okay, Mehdi, final word to you.
I mean, look, we can argue about what victory looks like. We can also argue that a victory shouldn't involve a genocide, right? That's been my consistent position from the beginning. Don't kill civilians. Don't intentionally harm civilians. When the former head of the Israeli military, the former Israeli defense minister, not some lefty, not some anti-Semite, Moshe Yaalon says last week, we're doing ethnic cleansing. We're sending our soldiers to commit war crimes. We're losing touch with our Jewish values. That's what Moshe Yaalon, a hawk, the former head of the Israeli military, said last week. There's a reason he's saying that, and there's a reason John Spencer doesn't want to engage with that, because Israeli generals are saying it themselves. We've turned killing kids into a hobby. The world can see. I thought we're not interrupting, John. The world can see what Israel is doing. Israeli generals can see. And by the way, one last point. Please don't go and invoke Yemen to score your points. I think I've spoken and written more about Yemen than you ever have. People like you only ever come along and cite Yemen and Sudan.
Back excuse. Are you kidding me? Rafah is flattened. Most of Gaza is literally just rubble now. They dropped 2,000-pound bombs on a refugee camp just to miss one guy? America gave them every single thing they asked for, no strings attached. Biden never even asked for a ceasefire. So don't come at me with this stab in the back nonsense. It's a total cop-out. You didn't get